China issued a regulation that says if you talk about law, medicine, finance, or education online, you need to prove you have actual credentials. To post, you need to share your credentials with the platform. Millions of influencers had their accounts frozen overnight. And as of April 3rd, the FTC just published a 5-year plan that outlines a very similar groundwork for the United States. So here's the question. Should creators need credentials to post about professional topics? And what happens to the creator economy if the US follows China's lead? Let's talk about it. Just a note, everything I share on this channel is legal information and commentary, not legal advice for a specific situation. If you need legal guidance regarding your situation, you would need to consult with a licensed professional in your jurisdiction. With that being said, let's get into it. In October 2025, the Cyberspace Administration of China, the CAC, introduced new regulations for content creators. The rule is straightforward. Anyone producing online content about medicine, health, law, finance, or education must possess verified professional credentials. That means a degree, a license, or a certification verified by the platform before you're allowed to post. Major platforms like Douyin, which is China's version of TikTok, along with Bilibili and Weibo, are now legally responsible for verifying these credentials. If a platform hosts uncredentialed content in these categories, the platform can be fined up to 100,000 yen or roughly $14,000. The enforcement was immediate. Millions of influencers who had built massive followings giving skincare tips, investment strategies, medical advice, and legal guidance had their accounts frozen or placed under review. Overnight, the biggest creator economy in the world fundamentally changed. On April 3rd, 2026, the Federal Trade Commission published its fiscal year 2026 through 2030 strategic plan. And when you read it alongside China's regulation, the parallels are striking. The FTC's plan identifies health fraud as a top enforcement priority. It commits to going after fake reviews, bot-driven engagement, and purchased followers, the manufactured social proof that makes unqualified creators look credible. It puts a share of the liability onto platforms for hosting deceptive branded content, and it specifically calls out child-directed content and AI-generated endorsements as key enforcement targets. Now, there is a critical difference. China's approach is preemptive, which means you have to prove your credentials before you're allowed to post. The FTC's approach is reactive. So you can post whatever you want, but if it's deceptive, you could be in trouble after the fact. China says, prove it first, and the FTC says, if you do it, we'll catch you. But overall, the direction is really similar. Both governments have arrived at the same conclusion. Unqualified people giving professional advice online is a problem for citizens, and platforms bear some responsibility for what their creators publish. This regulation didn't come out of nowhere. Think about what's been happening in the creator economy over the past few years. We had a pandemic where unverified health claims were spreading faster than actual medical guidance. We had crypto influencers promoting projects that collapsed and cost people their savings. We've had fitness influencers giving nutrition advice that contradicts basic medical science. And we've had people with zero legal training telling their followers how to handle contracts, lawsuits, and even business decisions. The creator economy ad spend is projected to hit $45 billion this year. That's not a hobby industry anymore. That is a massive economic force where the people creating the content have enormous influence over what millions of people believe, buy, and do. And until now, there has been essentially no barrier to entry for giving professional advice. Anyone with a phone and a ring light can call themselves an expert. Regulators on both sides of the world looked at that and said, this is a problem. And they're right. It is a problem. The question is whether their solutions are the right ones. Let me make the strongest case for why this is the right kind of regulation. People make real decisions based on what they see online. Someone watches a video about 5 supplements that changed my life, and then they go and they buy those supplements. Or someone watches a video about how to handle a contract dispute, and they follow that advice in a real legal situation. If the person giving the advice, whether supplements or contracts, has no training, no education, and no accountability, and the advice is wrong, real people can get hurt. And right now, there's nothing preventing that from happening. Requiring credentials for professional topics isn't a new or radical idea. We already do this offline. You can't practice medicine without a license. You can't give legal advice without passing the bar. You can't manage someone's money without proper certifications. The argument is the same principles should apply online, where the audience is bigger and the potential for harm is greater. But now, let's make the case for why this might not be the right regulation. First, there's a free speech issue. In the United States, the First Amendment protects your right to share opinions and information. Requiring government-verified credentials before you're allowed to speak on certain topics could be viewed as a significant restriction on free speech. Where do you draw the line? Who decides what counts as professional advice versus personal opinion? Is a creator sharing their own experience with a legal situation giving legal advice? These are not simple lines to draw. Free speech can be a complex issue. Second, credentials don't guarantee quality. Having a degree doesn't mean you're a good communicator or that your advice is current or even relevant. It could be said that some of the best financial education on the internet comes from people without formal finance degrees. Some of the worst may come from people with degrees. Credentials measure access to education, but not the quality of the education and therefore the content. And third, this could disproportionately affect marginalized creators. The people who are least likely to have expensive degrees and certifications are the people who already face the most barriers to entry in the economy in general, but also in the creator economy. A regulation like this could silence valuable voices with life experience while protecting established players who may lack that experience but have the credentials. So after looking at the pros and the cons, here's where I stand. As someone who is about to have a law degree and who makes legal content on the internet, I have a complicated but clear position. I think the problem is real. There are people online giving dangerous medical advice, reckless legal guidance, and predatory financial recommendations. That's not a free speech issue. That's a public safety issue. The FTC is right to prioritize enforcement against deceptive health claims and fake expert credentialing. But China's preemptive model, requiring credentials before you can post, would likely struggle to be accepted in the United States and potentially, at least in the US, create more problems than it ultimately would solve. The best approach for the United States might be the one that the FTC seems to be building towards. Hold creators accountable for deceptive claims after they create the content. Require platforms to share responsibility for verifying branded content and give consumers better tools to evaluate who they're actually listening to. And here's the part that matters for everyone watching this. Whether or not the US adopts credential requirements, the direction is clear. The era of anyone saying anything with no accountability is coming to an end. The creators who will thrive in this new environment are the ones who can demonstrate real expertise, who are transparent about their qualifications, and who understand the legal boundaries of what they can and cannot say. That's not a threat to good creators. It's a competitive advantage. If you actually know what you're talking about, regulation helps you because it clears out the people who don't know what they're talking about. Regardless of what regulation ends up passing in the US, here's what you should be doing right now to protect yourself and your business of content creation. First, be transparent about your qualifications. If you have relevant credentials, say that. If you don't, be honest about that too. Your audience will trust you more for it, not less. On this channel, I'm transparent that I'm still in law school and a Billboard charting artist, not a licensed attorney. I share legal information and commentary, but not legal advice, and that distinction matters. Second, use disclaimers. If you're creating content in a professional niche, legal, financial, medical, educational, a clear disclaimer that your content is informational is not just smart, it's potentially necessary. Include it in your videos and in your descriptions. Third, stay compliant with FTC disclosure rules. If you have brand deals, disclose them clearly. If you're using affiliate links, say that. The FTC's 5-year plan is explicitly targeting these violations. Getting ahead of enforcement and training yourself on that is always better than getting caught by it. Fourth, invest in your actual expertise. If you're building a content business around a professional topic, invest in your education and credentials, not because a regulation is forcing you to, but because it makes your content better, your audience more loyal, your business more durable, and you're actually helping solve the problem. The creator economy is growing up. And like any industry that gets big enough to affect millions of people's health, finances, and legal decisions, regulation is coming. The only question is, what form is it going to take? If you're a creator with real expertise, this is your moment. The playing field is about to get cleaner, and the people who can prove they know what they are talking about are going to win. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of the legal changes shaping the creator economy. I cover this every week. Should the US require credentials for influencers? Drop your take in the comments. I want to hear what you think. I'm Stevie. This is Girl Code of Law. I'll see you next week.